Well, the NFL season is officially over, and the Seattle Seahawks are your Super Bowl champions, so congratulations to Seattle. Now, currently, the NFL has a seven-seeded format for the postseason. That means that 14 teams can make the postseason. But right before this, the NFL had a six-seeded format, so that 12 teams would make the postseason. But for whatever reason, they decided to change this a few years ago. So today, in our What If video, we'll be looking at what if the NFL never changed its format from 12 teams to 14? What if the seventh seed never existed? And does it really change anything for the NFL? So let's go ahead and take a deep dive into this what if scenario. So back in 2020, the NFL originally brought in the seventh seed, but they did not add in that extra week of football. So with that being said, nothing changes here in this scenario other than the two seven seeds, the Bears and the Colts, do not make the postseason. But otherwise, everything else would stay the same, and the Buccaneers would still beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Heading into the following season, we do see some changes. First off, the 49ers and Eagles both missed the playoffs. The 49ers do not beat the Bengals, while the Eagles do not beat the Jets. So those games don't count. While the Saints sneak in as the sixth-seeded wildcard team. The Saints originally lost to the Titans, but they do not play in this scenario, so the Saints don't lose. And on the AFC side, the Colts, once again, just missed the playoffs. So heading into the wild card, we have a lot of changes. The only game that remains the same is the Rams and Cardinals, which the Rams dominated them 34-17. We got the Bills now facing the Raiders, and we got the Bengals facing the Patriots. Originally, the Bills did dominate the Patriots, and the Bengals and Raiders did play a closer game, while the Bengals still got the win in, I forget how many years it was, like 30 years or so. But this time it's going to be the same, but we just switched teams. So the Bills still dominate over the Raiders, while the Bengals still play a closer matchup against the Patriots, but they still get the job done. And the Bengals are now the 3 seed, and the Bills are the 4 seed. Raiders are 5th seed, Patriots are 6th seed still. And on the NFC side, we have the Cowboys and the Saints. And if you remember, the Cowboys originally faced the 49ers, but they lost 23-17 with a very blatant call at the very end. I don't know if this still happens in this scenario, but we are going to go ahead and say that it does, giving the 6-seeded team, the Saints, the victory over Dallas. You can let me know if you agree with me in the comments or not, but I'd love to hear from it. All right, so moving on to the divisional round, we have the Packers facing the Saints, and this time the Packers do get the job done. They originally lost to the 49ers, but this time the Pack does send the Saints home, and they do move on to the NFC Championship game. Buccaneers and Rams, it's still the same, so the Rams still get the job done over the Bucks. Now on the AFC, we have the Titans taking on the Bills and the Chiefs taking on the Bengals. The Bills, I would say, still beat the Titans. The Bengals originally beat them 19-16, so we'll say that the Bills do move on, and the same story happens there. While on the other hand, the Chiefs and Bengals, they originally faced off in the AFC Championship game. And we're going to say that the same storyline happens here, so that the Bengals do move on. So that way, it is going to be the Bengals versus the Bills in the championship game, as well as the Packers and the Rams. And I think it's still going to be the same scenarios of the Rams and Bengals heading to Super Bowl 56. Maybe the Bills do wind up upsetting the Bengals. I don't know. You can let me know in the comments, though. But in this scenario, we got the Rams beating the Bengals once again, Super Bowl 56. Other than this time around, the Bengals were the 3 seed rather than the 4 seed versus 4 seed. Now, on a side note, I will note that this was the year that Demaryius Thomas did pass away during the season. And the Broncos originally beat the Lions like 38-10. But in this scenario, they don't face the Lions, and the following week, the Bengals would beat the Broncos 15-10. I would say that this game would change so that the Broncos would get the win in honor Demaryius Thomas. And if that is the case, then everything in the postseason would remain the same. But as far as the scenario goes, we're just taking away the games that are extra for the season, which is why we came up with the scenarios that we did for this. But other than that, I do think that's what happens. Moving on to the road to Super Bowl 57, the Eagles and 49ers have their bye week, and the Chiefs and Bills on the AFC have their bye week. The Giants still face the Vikings. The Cowboys still face the Buccaneers. And on the other side, the AFC side, the Bengals are now facing the Chargers, and the Jaguars are hosting the Baltimore Ravens. I think it's pretty much going to remain the same here. Um, Maybe the Chargers don't get as big of a lead against the Bengals, but the Bengals will still manage to hold the game pretty close and sneak away with the win, while maybe the Jaguars make the comeback against the Ravens. I don't know for sure, but nonetheless, I say that the Jaguars would beat the Ravens. Everything else in the postseason would remain the same, and we would still have the Eagles versus Chiefs in Super Bowl 57. Heading into Super Bowl 58, and we do see some major changes. First one I want to know is that the Lions get the number 1 seed after they do not face the Ravens, so they go 12-4. The 49ers, who are in the first seed, sneak down to the second seed, but that doesn't really affect them because they still get the bye week. Ravens and Chiefs still are the number 1 and 2 seeds, so they are A-okay. Actually, I think that the Chiefs were the number 3 seed now that I think about it. But anyway, they all get the bye week. So the Cowboys are now the 3 seed, host the 6 seeded Packers. Originally, it was the 2 seeded Cowboys and 7 seeded Packers, which the 7 seeded Packers, the first team in NFL history to beat the number 2 seed Cowboys. The same thing happens here, other than the 7 seed does not exist anymore. While the Buccaneers face the Eagles, and I believe that it's going to be the Buccaneers. They originally just dominated over the Eagles, like I want to say like 32-7 or something. The Bills face the Dolphins in what should be a closer matchup because those two go back and forth. But I say that the Bills do beat the Dolphins, while the Jaguars and Browns face off for the first time in the postseason. And I have the Jacksonville Jaguars moving on to get their rematch with the Ravens the following week. So moving on to the divisional round, the 6-seeded Packers now face the 1-seeded Lions. This is going to be a very close matchup. Originally, the Lions faced the Buccaneers, which they beat them. I don't know if that's going to happen in this game or not. I'm going to say that the Lions make some mistakes because the Packers did go into Detroit and beat them earlier in the season. So I think that the Packers kind of had their number in this case as well. So I'm going to say that the Packers upset the Lions to move on to the NFC Championship game once again. And the 49ers will knock out the Buccaneers, setting up the 49ers versus Packers matchup for the NFC Championship game. A rematch between last season's Jacksonville Jaguars and the Baltimore Ravens. And this time the Baltimore Ravens do wind up winning it. And of course, the Chiefs and Bills, once again, the Chiefs on top of the Bills. It's the same matchup between the Ravens and the Chiefs, which the Chiefs will beat the Ravens. And the 49ers now host the Green Bay Packers, and I think it's pretty obvious that the 49ers have the Packers number. So Super Bowl 58, we get the same matchup between the Chiefs and the 49ers. Same story. Moving on to Super Bowl 59, nothing really changes here. The Lions get the 15-1 which is the best in their franchise's history. The It's the same matchups. The Rams still beat the Vikings. The Buccaneers still beat the Commanders. The only different one would be the Ravens and the Broncos, which I think is pretty obvious that the Ravens would beat the Broncos. But after that, it everything remains the same, which would lead to the Eagles beating the Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. And lastly, Super Bowl 60, the most recent Super Bowl between the Seahawks and Patriots. Absolutely nothing changes other than the two seventh seeded teams do not make the postseason, while the two number 2 seeds make a bye week. But otherwise, everything else remains the same. And that's all that we have for this video. Thank you everyone for watching, and let me know in the comments what you guys think. What would you guys change, or how different things could be? Let me know, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. I got more planned, so thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.